So I have a lot of garden chores to do. Things are looking pretty messy, and I feel like something that I struggle with is having all these big garden dreams and like permaculture dreams, and then it just feels like I never make any big progress towards making things actually look good. So today I kind of just need to like set things back to baseline. I need to mow the lawn, I need to trim things up a bit. One of our garden beds completely broke down. It was made from a bunch of recycled wood, and it lasted us about 6 years, so it was really great and really beautiful when we had it. But I think it's just met its end. And so, given that it's April, almost the end of April, I have to come up with some sort of makeshift bed very quickly because I have things to plant. As you can see, these are just some of our seeds. So yeah, I gotta figure something out. Welcome to my yard. First thing I always have to do is pick up all of the torn up toys from my dogs. I have 2 puppies and they are in full destroying toy puppy mode. And I can't be mowing toys. Come on. Okay, so here's the deal. About 6 years ago during the pandemic, I decided I wanted to get really clear on what kind of life I actually wanted to live. I quit my nonprofit manager job and started working for myself about a year later, and I took on a lot of risk to do that. But the main thing for me was just getting my time and autonomy back. I wanted time to build the life that I always imagined, like learning how to grow food, creating a healthier ecosystem on my little piece of property, and just honestly having the time to actually appreciate being here. And I have done a lot of that. My partner Nate and I planted over 250 native plants in 1 year, and we've spent the last few years slowly learning how to grow more of our own food. But I still can't shake the feeling that I'm behind. Like, the version I have in my head is always just a little out of reach, and every project ends up being way more complicated than I expect.
That's why I love it. That twisted
Wow.
seed.
What are you gonna do with it?
Greenhouse.
We don't have a greenhouse.
I think I thought having more time would mean that I'd get there faster, but honestly, it doesn't really work like that. If there's one thing gardening is teaching me, it's that nothing about this is instant, and I'm still learning to be okay with that and how to create the actual vision that I have inside my head, even if it doesn't come together the way I expect, and even if it takes way longer than I think it should. So I've lived at this property for 7, I think maybe 8 years. And one of the huge reasons that we first decided to get this house and this property is because it had a giant willow tree. And it was kind of not center of the yard, but kind of set back towards the end, and it was huge and just like cast this beautiful shape. I remember when I first moved in that summer, just always sitting under the willow like I am right now. And soon after that, during the first winter that I was here, we had a snowstorm, which is not super common for this area. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night to a huge crack and boom. The willow tree had split down the middle and completely come down, like absolutely not salvageable. I remember we had the arborist come out to kind of, cut things up and assess the situation. And he had said that the willow would never properly grow back because it was too weak and the roots wouldn't reestablish themselves. He suggested that we pull out the entire stump of the willow, but I held out foolish, naive hope. 7 years later, it paid off because I am now sitting beneath the willow tree once more. It is so special because every single year, my partner and I have put in work to shape all of the growth that came out of it. It was basically a shrub for many, many years. And each winter and each spring, we would cut it back and shape it to the best that we could. Finally, this year, it's just really looking like a tree. And this is actually the first day in which I'm sitting down in the shade of the willow tree. It's now evening after a day in the yard, a productive day, and I couldn't be happier. Also, said willow tree is right by our freshly built pallet compost bin, and I am so fixated on compost right now that I just feel so much joy being able to sit and gaze at my compost bins.
Good morning. Yesterday I basically only got the mowing done. That's the challenge of working outside with 3 dogs, 2 of which are puppies. So today my goal is to create whatever type of makeshift garden bed that I can, because soon I really need to plant out our plantings, our seedlings. So luckily we have a lot of saved material of various kinds, but probably none of it matching or that actually is cohesive. So yeah, we're a bit behind on the garden plan for this year, but let's see what I can do. Go for it.
I collected all of these pavers / bricks that we had, and then realized that I absolutely cannot figure out what bed is going to go here parallel to this old falling apart bed until I figure out how salvageable this is and clean it up a bit. So, shifting focus. So this whole end is rotten and came off. And it just seems like there's no saving it. Which also means that this side fell over because there's nothing holding it together. I don't really have material to rebuild another bed this year, so not sure what's gonna happen. A couple years back, we grew all of our garlic in this bed, and one year we didn't harvest it, and so then we had just like hundreds of these tiny, hard garlic bulbs, and there are still some that escaped being harvested that are now regrowing again. I feel like we could probably still like eat these, just chopped up or something. Since building our new compost beds and having much more room for like yard waste to go into kind of like a productive system, I just revel in the fact that every time I'm pulling weeds, they're going to be utilized and turned into something else. So then it's like the chore of pulling weeds is just like not as much of a tedious chore, and it's more like a harvest, because you're harvesting all the nutrients that are stored in these roots and in these leaves, and they can be reused. Well, it's not looking good. Doesn't seem super salvageable. This whole end The soil is like spilling out the sides. And a big problem is that the rosemary is so established and so big in this bed that it's going to be a whole thing to dig it out. I think I'm starting to realize that I'm probably never going to be the kind of gardener who has everything perfectly planned out, like everything built on time, planted at the right moment, and looking exactly how I imagined it. And honestly, I think I'm okay with that because I'm not just trying to make this look good. I want this to be a place where we're actually growing food, where the soil is healthier, and where things start working together instead of feeling like a bunch of separate projects. And I do feel a responsibility to take care of this land since we have it and just try to leave it better than we found it. I can see what I want it to be really clearly in my head. I'm just not there yet. So for now, I just do what I can and come back to it again the next day. I woke up today and had this full day planned in the yard and in the garden. And then I just thought, I need to get out of the house. I need to be by some water, the river maybe, and I need to be somewhat in the forest. So Arrow and I are en route to just kind of like this low-key trail/park. Arrow is still terrified of basically everything outside of our yard. We're trying to get better, but he's just like very scared, so we have to kind of introduce him slowly. And so we'll see how it goes today because he's not leash trained due to the fear. We've been focusing on that. He's scared as fuck, of course, which is so funny because it's so peaceful out here. Like, nothing is going on except birds and breeze. But he'll learn. Big leaf maples are my favorite tree. Absolutely stunning. We made it back home. Arrow did really well. He was quite scared. And I think it was the first time he had ever seen a child. There were a couple of, I would guess, like 2-year-olds on the trail at different points. And he just stood there staring at them intensely and had his hackles up, which I find hilarious. And then they passed and he like desperately wanted to smell them. Little by little, we are working on his confidence. Look at this cutie. And here's this cutie. It's so interesting because I was just thinking how content I am most days to stay at home. And then I woke up this morning planning to kind of finish our compost setup. And I just could not shake this feeling of like, I need to get out and I need to get in the forest or by the river or whatever, like I was sharing. And I did, and I felt so much better. It got rid of any like weird mood that was coming upon me, which can sometimes like derail my day and motivation. And now I'm in the yard and I'm ready to get some shit done because I feel like this weekend has just been me like half doing a lot of projects, which ends up driving me insane a lot of the time, as I was sharing the other day. So the last step in our compost bins is putting on the chicken wire, kind of like mesh screen around the edges of everything so that we don't lose any compost through the gaps. I think with the width of this, we're gonna have to do 2 sections, one on the bottom and one across the top. I need to know how the hell I'm supposed to even get started unrolling this. It just looks like a jumble of various wires that are tangled. I don't know where the starting point is. Step 1, figure out the very first step. Okay, I had to change my shirt because the black was too hot in the sun. The good news is I got the chicken wire unwrapped, figured it out on my own, didn't even ask a man, so applause to me. The bad news is that we thought that we had a staple gun, but it's actually a nail gun, and we don't have the part to turn it into a staple gun. I think what I'll do is I'll just cut the size pieces of wire that we need. At least then I'll have one more step done. So right now I have put 6 of the chicken wire cuttings in each bay of the compost. But this way, once we get the staple gun adapter, we'll be able to already have this done and just place it on the pallets and get on our merry way, doing what I can with what I have.